everyone, and
Hello.
welcome to a brand new episode of Continence Chat, where Deanna and myself endeavor to make uncomfortable conversations more comfortable. And today we have a delightful guest with us, Norman Kown from the Newport Center of Orthopedic Medical Supply. And welcome, Norman. We're excited to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate this.
Well, we're excited to hear a little bit about your story. Perhaps can you fill us in how you got started in this field?
Yeah, I was living up in San Francisco, and it got to the point where my parents, especially my dad, had to be taken care of, and it was a lot for my mom. Because at that time, we didn't know what part of the symptoms of dementia was. We didn't know at that time that he had it. So I came down to kind of help facilitate with my mom, with my dad. And it just, with her, she would walk around the house and she would step in a wet spot. And she's like, what is this? And she found out that, unfortunately, my dad went. And so she didn't know. She actually had some panic attacks regarding it. So I came and helped out, and we went to a facility, a senior center, because you don't know where to go for anything. And so when we went to the facility, they told us about this one place, Newport Orthopedic. And so we went there, and we were able to get what we needed for him. And so with that, I figured, wow, there's so many things here that I didn't know about. So many things that could make our lives much easier. Who now I became the caregiver for my dad. And so, and not only that, to help him be a little bit more comfortable. So that grew into, after my dad passed, it was like, okay, it's really my mom. And I figure I need to get into this business because I need to know when my mom gets to a certain point, what is it that I can do to make her life more comfortable, less stressful. And so that's how I got into this business.
Yeah.
Wow. I go ahead, Deanna.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it's interesting to hear the story of why, because I know we travel across the country, and more often than not, people that are servicing the demographic of older adults typically have gotten into the industry out of passion or being a caregiver themselves versus I went to school for it. Now I've signed up for it. It usually, I mean, nurses, obviously, and people that are going to get degrees related to the professional aspect of where you need the credentials. But a lot of us, myself included, you just kind of get into this for other things, right? It's just interesting. I almost think you fall into it versus look for it type of thing.
Very true. Actually, no, you're right, because for me, I figure, okay, what is the best way to really help my mom? What's the best way, rather than me always being there and caring for her? But if there's certain situations that is uncomfortable for her, how can I make it more comfortable but less stressful for myself? And so knowing that, wow, okay, there are places like Newport Orthopedic that have things that really help you kind of get over those hurdles and make it a little bit less stressful, kind of helps out. And that's why I thought, I need to understand more and learn more, so when certain things do happen, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And it's a surprise to us so often, right? That we're in a situation. I don't know if it was clear to your mom or yourself, maybe that your dad had dementia right away, or maybe there was some things happening that all of a sudden you realized, oh my goodness, this is what we're dealing with. And just like you mentioned, the incontinence episode with the wetness, that sounded like a big surprise. No one was prepared for this.
No one was. And it happened for a while. So before she really understood, she just thought, oh, he's being lazy or he's trying to get back at her for an argument. But it wasn't until he actually, because he loves to walk. He walks quite a bit, and it's the way he stays active. And so there was one day he was walking, and he started to shuffle his foot. And so when he starts to shuffle his foot got caught on the other one, and he fell and he hit his head on the lamppost. And so luckily someone was there that drove by, picked him up, and off to the emergency room they went. And it wasn't until that point did we know, oh, he has dementia. And then it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, what are the signs of dementia? Okay, so does this incontinence, does that play a part? We didn't know. And so that was, yes, it did play a huge part in it. And as dementia gotten worse, so did everything else. And so it got to the point where he couldn't talk, and so he understood kind of what we were saying, but he couldn't express vocally what he wanted to say. So it was something that you're just not prepared for until it kind of happens, and then it makes you just think differently when you get to that point,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think it can be challenging too, because the body can look the same, but the mind is deteriorating. And so until you have a diagnosis, you can often think that, gee, mom or dad is becoming more forgetful, or maybe they're forgetting something that they shouldn't have, or we had hoped that they wouldn't have, and they forget that instead of coming from a place of understanding, because we may not know yet this person physically looks the same. So it's, gee, people can tend to get a little upset, versus one of the things we always try to preach is come from a place of understanding the big picture, or what might be happening, versus coming from a place of lack of that. But that's difficult, right? When we don't have a diagnosis yet, to think, gee, they keep forgetting this, that, and the other thing, or what have you. I'm curious, Norman, can you share for our viewers a little bit about Newport and your role there?
So I'm the lead DME consultant. So we pretty much try to take the stress out of finding things that you might need for your loved ones, or if you're a caregiver trying to figure out, where do I get X, Y, and Z? We kind of our goal is to help take that stress out for you. We will find the medical products that you will need. And if need to, we could even make it even more convenient, and we could drop ship it to you. So we're there really to help educate the community as far as what you would need, what's best or could be best for your loved ones to make it more comfortable for them, but also less stressful for the caregiver.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen Norman in action over at the Newport Beach location, and it's interesting. It's walking into your store. It's very clean. It's very organized. It's very classy.
Thank you.
And your smiling face and the other staff members that are there, so helpful. And I sometimes, will be waiting in line just to say hi, because I don't want to interrupt what you've got going there. But to see the different people that come in, and some are desperate for solutions. Others are curious. They don't know what they need. And you're so patient and compassionate and kind with them. it gives them an opportunity to open up about their challenges. Or maybe, it's a husband-wife and she's explaining her husband's challenges because maybe he didn't really want to come in the store. He didn't think he needed help, but you are gentle and kind enough where it allows them to open up. They don't feel threatened. They feel like it's a safe place. And I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious what types of challenges you're seeing that come into the store where you're able to offer solutions.
Definitely. There's been quite a few, actually. So we had a couple come in, and I was helping primarily the wife pick out certain things that she would need. And we had right on the back, by the register where you check out, on the back side, there's some incontinence stuff standing there. And so she started to inquire about, what are these for? And how do you use this? And then right when that conversation started, the husband just walked out the door. I didn't even know he walked out the door because I was just so involved on educating and telling her about, what's out there and what could be possibly you can use. And so she noticed he went out, and then she went out. She goes, "Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I need to go." And so she left. And about, I'd say 15 minutes later, she came back and she goes, "I am so sorry. But when we started to talk about incontinence, he got so embarrassed, he just walked out." So at that point, I told her, I said, well, you don't necessarily, depending on the severity of it, you don't necessarily have to get adult briefs. You just don't. I mean, you can there are other things out there. You could get guards that could help facilitate, and protect. And then I spin it to where you could tell him that it's no difference than if you were to play football and you were to wear a cup. It's pretty much the same thing, right? I had another customer that came in, and I carry the light and the active guards. And so what he's been doing, rather than wearing the tabs or the pull-ups, he wears the active at night, and then he wears the light in the daytime. And he says, "That's perfect. That's enough. That's all I need." So, different certain situations, there are different things out there that could help. And it could, as long as I believe as long as we change the verbiage and change the mindset, how to think about it, I think it will make people a little bit more comfortable.
I'm going to jump in here because I think you raise a good point, and this actually came up on a webinar that we presented yesterday to folks that were caring for older adults as well. And I think your analogy with the cup versus the guard is the perfect analogy for this topic. But I think part of it is how we reduce those stigmas and over time eventually eliminate them simply by using the words. What came up on this webinar is one of the folks on the webinar brought up, how do you start conversations about incontinence? And one of my teammates and I helped them with some of the language. To your point, it could be, gee, it's just like or similar to wearing a supporter, or using the term briefs or pull-ups or active disposable underwear as opposed to diapers. And then, it could be, instead of the word incontinence, I don't know if you find this, Norman, I'd be curious as my piggyback question. Some people, we're Susie and I and our teammates are so close to it. We eat, sleep, and breathe incontinence, right? But then we find a lot of people don't even know what that word means. And we have to pull back a little and say, oh, wait a minute. Bladder leaks. Does someone dribble? Does someone have to run to go to the bathroom? Changing up the terminology to make it more mainstream and better understood. And I'm just curious how, if you find that with your customers, do they know what the word incontinence even means, or do you have to use other terminology that's more comfortable for them?
I think it's 50-50. When people come into Newport, some people know what incontinence are. Some people just kind of look and see the package and know, oh, that's what I need, or possibly this is what's going to help in the situation. And that's how they identify with it. I think once we talk about it, it's kind of hearing those key words, right? So if I hear prostate cancer, if I hear enlarged prostate, then one of those things is I would ask, have you ever thought about trying a guard? And I will let them know. So I've tried the guards. I put them on, you know, and it's nothing to be embarrassed about by any shake of the imagination. I have friends that actually use the guards, and they love it. So I think it's more, the more we talk about it and the more we're not afraid of it. We can't be afraid of incontinence. We can't be afraid to open that discussion, because once the person who you're talking to is uncomfortable about it, then they're going to make them uncomfortable about it. But to your point, as long as we use different verbiage or take it in a different path, as far as, yeah, think of it as using guards as a when you're playing sports or supportive briefs, right? Because then that just takes that stigma out and it makes them a little bit more comfortable. I find that I had another customer, a female customer actually, come in and she uses the pads. She doesn't use the pull-ups because now we have Seni women's pads in the store. And she loves them because she says, I wear these in the daytime and they're perfect, they're comfortable, and they work. And I find with women, in talking about pads, it's just more easier because it's more common, the word pads, right? It's just, you know, there's pads for certain different situations, and in life, we talk about it. You see commercials about it. So with pads, it's not that stigma of it. But with men, there's no talk about guards. There's no talk about that piece that's going to really help, other than trying to associate the incontinence with something that's a little bit more masculine, that they understand and feel better and go, oh yeah, you know, it's no different than wearing a supportive cup or whatever when you're playing sports. This is the exact same thing.
Yeah. All good points. All good points. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, let's just talk about it. And as you were talking about how you're approaching things, what dawned on me, and I think for males, and tell me if I'm wrong too, what I love about working with home medical supply stores is that they have staff members like yourself, a DME lead, who can talk with the customers, help them feel comfortable, welcome them in where they're comfortable, versus someone who's headed to a big box store. And we hear the stories, someone's in an aisle, and more often than not, it's a male, could be a male versus a woman, just because of the stigma. And they're thinking, please don't anybody in my community come down this aisle at any time and see me here. That would be horrifying. And now I'm here and I've got pressure that I don't want anybody seeing me. So I'm not even going to take the time to look. I'm going to grab and go. I'm going to grab it. What I think, am I a medium, a large? If I'm buying for mom or dad, are they a medium, a large? What size are they? Grab and go. It's almost like a person can't breathe because they're so focused on get the package, pay, and get out. Whereas we're big advocates of independent pharmacies and home medical supply stores because of that education. Not to say someday we won't have Seni with more choices and more options and more so forth, but the educational, my whole thing is the whole educational piece of it is critical regardless of where products are. It more people, and that's one of the reasons we do this Continence Chat is the educational component is just critical.
Yeah, I think I'm a true believer. In order to better understand what the person's going through and what they could possibly be thinking, is for you yourself to try it, to understand what it feels like, how to put it on, so you could talk about it much easier and more confident to say, you know, I used it. And I've tried it, and I understand what you're going through. I understand the hurdles, but these are the ways how we could overcome the hurdles. Because if you talk about it without even trying it, then how can you sell it? How can you educate, more importantly, on the positive aspect of a certain item? It's kind of like this other story I have, where my mom was walking and I see that on her leg, it's like a golf ball lump by the lower calf. I was really worried. I thought, we need to go get that checked. And so I took her to the doctor and I said, can you please look at this lump? What is that? I was wishing like, okay, you know, it's going to be nothing. It's going to be nothing. They did all the tests. And then when we came back, he's like, oh yeah. He goes, it's nothing serious. It's just varicose veins. I'm like, what? He's like, it's varicose veins. I said, wow. So then the next day I told my mom, well, there you go. Here's compressions. We start wearing compressions on an everyday basis to prevent that. But it's just, you know, for me, it's like, okay, it's just like with the guards. I need to start wearing compressions to understand how to put them on, the benefits and what have not. It's just like trying the guards. Okay, what are the benefits? How does it feel? How easy is it to put on? So then I could talk about it and easier talk about it. So that's what I try to do and tend to do, is just put myself in their situation and kind of go, okay, this is the better way maybe to go in this path, rather than this other one, because you might not need the briefs. Maybe you just need the guards.
Mm.
And that's what makes you so relatable, Norman. and the people gravitate toward that, right? Because you're being real. You're being real with them. What are some tips that you could offer to our viewers and to families that may be looking at situations that they're uncomfortable with? What tips could you offer them today?
So, like that one customer I was telling you about, when they were coming in and the couple and the husband left and the wife had to go kind to find out what happened. And when she came back and told me what happened, I told her, and I said, let me give you these samples. And because she says, well, you know, it's all about a pride thing, and he's not going to want to even try it. He's not going to want to, he doesn't want to discuss it. He doesn't want to be in here. He doesn't want nothing, right? So I told her, well, try this. Let me give you the samples and just place it. Just place it down. Anywhere on the coffee table, anywhere that you guys are at. And then let him find it and let him start asking questions. And then hopefully that will kind of open that up, because you're pretty much more in a safe space. You're at home. You're not in a public area. No one around you is going to hear what you have to say. The salesperson doesn't have to hear what you say. So hopefully when you're at home and you have that, you could open up that conversation in a more relaxed environment, a comfortable environment, and then they'll be willing to listen. But more importantly, to try the sample and go, yes, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need. Let's move forward with it. So that's the best advice I could give.
And that's great advice. That's great advice. And for people that may need to come visit you, where can they find your store?
So we're at 400 Newport Center Drive. We're literally right across from Fashion Island. If you know Fashion Island, if you know where the movie theater is, we're exactly on the opposite corner, big white building. Our suite is 104, and you'll be able to find us.
And this is in the city of Newport
Beach. Yes.
California.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Norman, for being our guest today. We sincerely not only value the relationship, but the insight that you provide. I just always think, and Susie does too, if we're helping one person out there, it's one person that we're helping, and that's awesome. So I think your insights are valuable, and I hope more people in the area have become familiar with you through this podcast. So thanks for your time so much. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Norman.
Bye.